Alright, so this week I thought we would go retro. Actually, this is inspired by an old surfing logo that I saw a few weeks ago, and I thought it was very cool because it used silhouettes in a very subtle way to create an overall interesting look. So, I have a document here already set up. This is a square document. You can see it's 5 by 5 at 100. Here I have an image that I want to create my silhouette from. And I can do this a couple of different ways. I can use my channels, but I can also do a really quick and easy way on this image. Since it is conveniently on a white background, I can go ahead and use my magic wand tool and go ahead and just use this and click in the areas of the background. You'll notice it didn't get the entire area here. It just selected this because the arm does break outside the image there. So I'm going to hold down the Shift key and just click in those other white areas to add to the selection. Let's get this little area in the arm here, perhaps a little bit inside there. So we've selected pretty much all of the background area. Let's get this little area right there. So I've got the entire background selected, but actually what I want is the subject itself to be selected. So I simply do that by going under the Select menu and choosing Inverse. So now I have the entire shape. So inside my layers panel here, I'm going to go ahead and create a new blank layer. And let's go ahead and fill this with a color. And we'll just use 50% gray to normal. And you just get to this window by pressing Shift Delete. That would be Shift Backspace on Windows. And we'll use all that and click OK. So we've got that shape as a silhouette shape right here. So we'll come back to that in just a moment. Let's go back to our original image here. We're going to fill this with a base color. And let's go ahead and choose a kind of a yellowish orange color here. And we'll get something like that. And that's already set on my foreground color. So I'm going to press Option Delete, and it goes ahead and fills it in. So let's go ahead and take our silhouette and just drag and drop it over. And it obviously came over really big. So I'm going to press Command T, Control T on Windows to go into Free Transform. And then I'm going to press Command 0, and that's going to expand out my document to reveal where my transform handles are. So I can quickly and easily just scale that in. So we've got our cool little silhouette shape here. Now what I want to do is go over to my Layers panel. Let's go ahead and minimize this image. We don't need it right now. I'm going to go over to my Layers panel and lock the transparency of this layer that contains the silhouette, and we're going to give this a different fill color. So I'm going to open up my Swatches panel, and let's grab this darker orange here. And I'm going to go ahead and press Option Delete since it's set as my foreground color and fill that in. There we go. And I'm going to go ahead and throw a layer mask on this. So right on that silhouette layer, let's add a layer mask on it. And I'm going to use the Gradient tool. So we'll jump over here and grab the Gradient tool in my toolbar. And we're going to go up here in the options bar and click right on this icon to open up the gradient editor. And I'm going to want to use this second icon right here, which is the foreground, the transparent. Then we're going to make sure we're using the radial gradient, which is the second one in the toolbar up here. And then inside of our image, working on the layer mask, we're just going to mask out various parts of this silhouette, just so it kind of has more like of a fading back in the background kind of look to it. That looks pretty cool. But now what I want to do is add another element to this. I'm going to have another photograph I've got here of this surfer girl against the sunset. So I'm going to take this entire image and go ahead and drag and drop it over to my working file here. And let's go ahead and minimize the original. So I've got this image inside of my document. I'm going to press Command T once again to get this into Free Transform and just scale this down a little bit. And we'll position it right about there. And what I want to do is change the blend mode of this image. We're going to go and try a couple of different ones just so you can see the difference. If you try Overlay, looks pretty good. You can try Soft Light, which is a little bit more subtle. And I think I almost like that a little bit better. So it's blending in nicely, but it's got hard edges around here. It just looks like a mess right now. So let's go ahead and throw a layer mask on that layer. And again, we're going to use that gradient tool, foreground to transparent up here, but this time we're going to use the linear gradient. And then just come in from each side, and I'm holding down the Shift key as I'm drawing my gradients just to constrain my movement left to right. We'll come in from the bottom here as well. And we've got a nice sunset fading in here. There we go. And reposition that right about there. Well, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here and add a new layer at the very top of the layer order here. And what I'm going to do is do something I do to create relatively darker areas of the background. I'm going to create a sample. So just grab your eyedropper tool and just sample that background yellow right there. And then I'm going to go into that new layer. And let's grab that gradient tool. Again, we're using the foreground to transparent right here. Linear. And just like we did on that layer mask coming in from each side, we're going to do the same thing with the image. But this time we're doing it with a color instead of a layer mask. Coming in from each side. It blends in. We don't really see anything because that color is the same as our background. But watch what happens when we change the blend mode of this layer from normal to multiply. Suddenly it takes on a different look altogether. Notice how big of a difference that made? So it's framing our image in there and kind of making that silhouette a little bit more subtle. In fact, I want to bring that sunset, the girl on the beach, in a little bit more by changing that blend mode back to overlay. So it'll punch that up a little bit. There we go. And if it still seems a little too intense, you can drop that opacity down. Let's do it to about 75. So that looks pretty good. Well, now let's take it and I'm going to go ahead and merge all of these layers together, but I don't want to flatten the original image. So what I'm going to do is hold down the Option key, Alt on Windows, and we'll go into our little flyout menu for the Layers panel and choose Merge Visible. You'll notice it makes a merged version of all the visible layers in the document. So I'm going to take that. Let's go in our toolbar and grab the elliptical marquee tool right here. And I'm just going to hold down the Shift Option key, which will allow you to draw a perfect circle out from the center. We'll just draw this out like this. Almost to the edge. So we're getting, a nice composition inside of this shape here. Well, let's go ahead and activate a layer mask on this. So go ahead and mask out that image. And we don't see a change because all these other layers are on. So if we turn all these layers off, we can see that our image is nicely contained inside of that circle. Well, since it's masked on a layer mask, we can add a layer style to it and add a border around the edge. So let's go ahead and double click on that layer and open up the layer style panel and add a stroke. And for this, I'm going to go ahead and make this a blue color here. So just click on that color swatch and select the color. I'm going to increase the size to about 5. And I'm going to set the positioning of this stroke inside. Just like that. There we go. So that looks pretty good. Now we just need to add a little bit of text. So I'm going to go ahead and create a text layer here. And let's do, we'll just call this what it is. We'll just call it Sunset. Now I'm going to use that same blue that I used for the stroke here. So let's just take our eyedropper and just sample that blue color. And it will assign it to my text right there. So let's go ahead and increase this. Perhaps even get a little bit of a rotation. Have it kind of drift off the side there. So I want it to say Sunset Surfers. So I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this layer. Just drag it to the new layer icon. And let's just position this over here. Double click on that text tool or text layer icon. And we can change this to Surfers. It's like an exclusive club of Sunset Surfers. Here we go. And we'll just reposition these layers, and we've got a pretty cool logo here. Can you even go ahead and add a layer style to this? Let's put a drop shadow perhaps. Maybe even a bevel and emboss just to sweeten it up a little bit. There we go. So I can turn off that global light, position your angle of your light inside toward the center more a little bit, and you get that kind of really cool kind of inflated look to it. Let's bump up the depth a little bit there. That looks pretty cool. So all we got on there is a bevel and emboss with these little settings here. Drop shadow looks good. We can quickly and easily apply it to the other text by simply holding down your Option key, Alt on Windows, and then dragging that effects icon right to your target layer, and it copies that layer style just like that. Pretty sweet. So now that looks good. Now let's see what it looks like perhaps in context. Like I said, I saw this on a t-shirt actually. So I'm going to go ahead and merge all these visible layers together just like we did a moment ago. I'm going to hold down the Option key, Alt on Windows, go into that menu and choose Merge Visible. There we have it. And I just happen to have an image of a t-shirt here. So let's take that graphic, drag it over, and we'll just scale it in a little bit here. I'm just doing a little bit of a free transform and give it rotation. And to have it blend with the fabric of the shirt a little bit better, I'm simply going to change the blend mode of this graphic to multiply. And there we have it, the Sunset Surfers.